And designers have not been incentivised to identify if the design has met the business needs once it's completed. So it's again taking it back and having some accountability. So there's lots of things we're looking at on the aftercare through the process, the handover and the initial occupancy phases, which is part of the fully developed resource plan. The post-occupancy evaluation, we're looking at various tools, and we need, for government, we will need to standardise those tools. TM22 is certainly going to be explored, and we're trying to identify which is the best way to look at a usability occupancy evaluation tool as well. But we will need to standardise in order that our feedback loop can come back in and influence future design. Defects liability is an interesting one. This is one that we've been looking at of maybe this is how we can tie the accountability back. Do we extend the defects liability from the traditional 1 year and take it up to 3 years? But what does that mean? Does that mean that it's just increased cost and you're passing it down the supply chain? So there's some questions around that, but that's one way that we could possibly do that. The GSL champion. I think danger man says. GSL champion. For government, we see this very much as a role that's already existing. It's someone that's on the client side, that's already in your FM or estate team, because they're the people that will be managing those buildings when you walk away from it. So we think they're already there, and they already have the skill set to input into it. We don't think it's something that you need to train someone for necessarily. Yes, they need to be knowledgeable about BIM and how it works, but really they're inputting their skills into that design process. And that role needs to be clearly identified in the project team from the early stages. And they will support all the 4 areas of focus that we're writing the policy on to make sure that that happens throughout the design and construction process. And they also need to ensure that the BIM data and the COVID data drops feed into the CAPM systems, and it's the CAPM systems that are key to making that work go forward. Now these are just a bit of a quick overview about the 4 areas. One of them is environmental performance. We're currently working on this and hot off the press. We're basically, for each area, there will be a process map and guidelines. The process map, I know you can't see them from here, but they will look fundamentally like this. And these are the BIM process maps. It's got the plan of work design stages. It brings them in very early. It says what we need to do for government soft landing. It drops in all the data into the COVID data drops that fit very much into BIM, and that then forwards into the CAPM system. So we've done this for each of the 4 areas, and each of them will have a guidance note that goes with them. So that's what these are what we're currently developing. So very straightforward, very simple, so everyone can follow it. Because what government is good at doing is following a process. Facilities management, a key one, making sure that we have them in at the early stages. So we focus on the operational management at the vision and the brief stages. We focus on the operational budget at the early stages as well. And BIM will enable us to do that because we can put some things in, we can test and we can model it. So it will really help. We'll develop the operational stages very early on, and the commissioning, training and handover into full mobilisation and user guides for the building users. Now I'm talking a lot about buildings here because our focus is currently on buildings, but there's no reason why this can't go into infrastructure as well. Our first phase is to focus on buildings. Commissioning, training and handover, I've already spoken about that. This is where we really need to improve, making sure that we've got the roles and responsibilities tied down, that the testing and commissioning is done very early, and the engagement of all the operational staff, including FM. And the final one is functionality and effectiveness. This is really about the monitoring post-completion. So establishing the needs and measures early on, and then measuring that post the completion, with both the environmental side and the carbon side, also with how the building is used. So we're looking at the types of studies we can use. The feedback and lessons learned really have to feed back into this, and this is how we improve the whole cycle going forward. So really, what are the benefits to FM? Well, we don't want to be handed a great big pile of manuals like that. We should have a nice CAPM system at the end of it, because all FMs run a CAPM system. It's all got all that BIM data fed in from the beginning. So that saves an awful lot of time and money. Every time you get a building handed over, someone has to sit down and type in all the asset detail. That takes an awful lot of time. And they have to find the data for it to type it in as well, which they don't always have. And then it's really is searching through those manuals to find that data and the piece of data that you want to put into the asset system. So it provides us with a much more streamlined process. much reduced time wasted in obtaining that information. The 3D modelling will assist in future planning and modifications in building use. But it will be really key that the FMs keep this up to date. And at the moment, the FMs are not knowledgeable in this area, and it's something that we really need to do. And the key, I think, the key to its success really is the CAFM suppliers. And I know we've got Max and Mo here today, so I'm glad that you've embraced it. But there really are very few CAFM suppliers that have embraced this so far, and it's something that we need to work on in government to make sure that the CAFM suppliers really do embrace it, because it will be the CAFM suppliers that will make sure that the FMs have something to work with going forward. Just a link to the BIM task group, where you can also find out information about the government soft landings at the bottom. I've rushed through that quickly because I know we didn't have an awful lot of time. So I think, are we going to take some questions now, Claire? Has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, a question, Deborah. Right at the end, you said, I think in your mind you've got CAFM and BIM as two separate systems, and data coming from BIM into CAFM, CAFM system to operate the assets. Do you not see perhaps the two being integrated into one? So BIM being a model that allows you to run functionality to do what you do in CAFM, essentially scheduling.
I've got no real issue either way, really, as long as we have a system that does what we need to do. I mean, obviously the CAFM systems do specific things to help us run buildings, and if it's a single system that embraces BIM, then great. If it's two separate systems, as long as the data's fed from one to the other, then that's great too. But it's really important that the information from the COVID data feeds and the BIM modelling feeds into that CAFM system, and it's updated when you do any changes.
But you don't automatically see the bigger distinction in two separate systems, it's just something you're using as...
I'm open to options on it at the moment. I haven't really seen anything. I mean, perhaps my colleague from Maximo can answer that one a bit better.
Yeah, I mean they are very distinct systems, I guess. Our view would be that you kind of integrate the two systems together so they'll work, because you don't know what the client's going to want. There's so many different like BIM systems out there. To bring let's say the big BIM system and the big CAFM system together kind of starts to exclude lots of other players in the market.
Yeah, it's probably I don't know enough about the software. It's just they don't see the sort of object orientation and intelligence of the sort of BIM world being replicated in CAFM. So maybe I need to learn a little bit more about your product.
Yeah, well, I can have a chat outside, but there's actually no problem at all.
Okay. And that's why I think the CAFM suppliers are quite keen to making the CAFM take it forward. Yeah. Okay, handing back to our chair for the